Okay, I guess it's 7 o'clock. Is it okay to start with the folks we have?
Manny, do you want to just hold on another minute just in case our two other members join us?
You bet. We'll give them a couple, 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So Michael, did you say you had someone doing the minutes for tonight's meeting?
Yeah, I can have the clerk's office help out with that.
Okay.
So it's obviously it's being recorded, so I'll do my best to take as many notes as possible tonight, and then they'll help me out with the rest.
Okay. And Manny, if you could have someone do some of the readings.
Okay.
Thanks.
So I guess either Bob or Mr. Finnegan, can you guys at least prep just 2 of the core documents that we'll have to have read? I guess one of them is the zoning board of review hearing procedures. If not, I can forward that to one of you. And then obviously the excerpt of our agenda item tonight.
Typically, Manny, you would read the hearing procedures.
Okay.
But the somebody else will have to read the little agenda item, or you could do that. But someone else and not you should be making the draft motion, should be making the motion and reading it from the draft motion, but the chair can't make the motion. So.
Understood.
And again, that draft motion is in the Dropbox, so you should all have it.
That's the motion on Snagwood Road, correct?
Correct.
So then I'll take care of reading those, Donna, today. I'll do both.
Okay, I appreciate that.
No problem. I prepped them up anyway on my screen, so I'll take care of it. Okay. You think we can? I don't know if they've joined. I can only see one screen at a time.
No, they haven't. But we do have 5. Our 5 full members are present. So
Can
go ahead, Joanna.
who? And these are the same 5 members that heard the Stoney Brook before?
Oh, you mean for Stoney Brook? I was thinking about for Snagwood. Let me double check.
Where
This Joe kid.
if we're postponing it to the next meeting.
Oh, we are postponing Stoney?
Yeah.
Okay, then that's fine.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So 7. No problem, Joanne. So call the meeting to order at 7:04. Could we do a roll call, please, Donna?
James Finnegan,
Aye.
Robert Moreau,
Yeah.
Joe Carey,
Here.
Donna Carchia here, Manny Linhares,
Here.
And
Okay.
John Hayter is absent, as well as Tim. Oh, I forget. I'm struggling with his last name. Dannenfelser. Tim Dannenfelser.
Are we going to table the minutes from last meeting?
Only if you would like to. Has everybody got a chance to review them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there anyone's pleasure?
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the May 17th meeting.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Okay, James Finnegan,
Aye.
Robert Moreau,
Aye.
Joe Carey,
Aye.
Donna Carcia, I, Manny Linares.
Aye. Okay, and it's also my understanding that the public hearing continuation of 1 Stoney Brook will be continued to our July meeting.
Yeah, there was a request by the applicant to post or continue that item to July 14th. Yeah, July 14th is the next zoning board meeting date. That was a request.
So we don't need a motion for that?
You do.
No.
You do need a motion.
All right, I'll make the motion that we continue the public hearing for the Stony Brook Road, Plat 17, Lot 67 to the July 14th meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, just a roll call, please.
James Finnegan,
Aye.
Robert Moreau,
Aye.
Joe Carey,
Abstain.
Donna Carcia, I, Manny Linares.
Aye. Okay, thank you all. So Joanne, as we move into our second agenda item, is it okay to read the hearing procedures now?
So read the agenda item
Okay.
and then you read the hearing procedures.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, so I'll move this here so I can read this. Okay, so today we have a public hearing for 12 Snagwood Road, Plat 13, Lot 36. The applicant Dare to Dream Ranch and owner Randall Bagwell seeks a special use permit for lodging, guest house, or bed and breakfast, use number 7 under the residential uses, section 38-191, the Town of Foster zoning ordinance. The applicants propose to create a temporary housing for veterans with the addition of a one unit building to be located on the premises. Okay. So I'm going to read through our zoning board of review hearing procedures for everyone. Number 1, any person who wishes to speak will sign in with his or her name and address and will be placed under oath. All questions and statements must be addressed to the board. There will be no crosstalk in the audience. Number 2, once the application is read, the chair will hear from the applicant first. It is the applicant's burden to present evidence supporting his or her request. The presentation must be clear and to the point. Number 3, after the applicant has completed his or her presentation, any abutters in favor of the application will have a reasonable time to speak. After all abutters in favor of the application have spoken, any abutters opposed to the application will have a reasonable time to speak. After all abutters have spoken, any other interested members of the audience may, at the discretion of the chair, speak for no more than 5 minutes. No person shall speak twice until all interested parties have spoken. Once all testimony is heard, the board will recess for discussion. No further testimony will be taken from the floor once the board is in recess. The board will then come out of recess. The chair will accept any motion, and it is the board's procedure that each motion must be in the affirmative. This does not imply an acceptance of the application. Number 7, 5 active members shall be necessary to conduct the hearing and vote. A vote of 4 to 1.
You broke up a little bit for me. Can you broke up a little bit.
I'll start back at number 7. So number 7, 5 active members shall be necessary to conduct a hearing and vote. A vote of 4 to 1 is necessary to carry any motion except an appeal. An appeal requires a vote of 3 to 2. Number 8, whether approved or denied, the board's decision will be finalized within 15 days and shall be recorded and filed within 30 working days from the date the decision was rendered. The decision will be mailed to the applicant and the zoning enforcement officer. See Rhode Island General Laws, section 45-26-61. No building permit can be issued before the decision is finalized and recorded. Number 9, if your hearing is denied, you have the right to appeal to Superior Court within 20 days after such decision is recorded. 10, The board reserves the right to postpone a decision until the next regularly scheduled meeting on any hearing. Okay, so thank you all. And just for courtesy of anyone speaking, please just place your, on mute until you're ready to speak. Okay, so let's find the applicant. So Karen, can we get you sworn in by our court reporter?
And probably Randall too, as the owner, he's present.
Okay, let's get you both sworn in. So Karen, why don't you go first?
Karen Dalton, 12 Snagwood Road.
Can you please raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Okay.
Randall, you're up next.
Say your
Please
name
raise
and
your right
address.
hand.
Oh, Randall Bagwell, 12 Snagwood Road, Foster, Rhode Island. Why did you put it?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Karen and Randall, the floor is yours to walk us through a brief explanation of what you're requesting in front of us today.
So you received the application and you received the PowerPoint presentation regarding a tiny home. Over the last 6 years, Randy and I have found that there is a hole in providing services for our veterans in Rhode Island, where if you are above poverty level, and that means if you are 100% disabled veteran, you are above poverty, you do not qualify for housing support in the state of Rhode Island through any of the organizations that are out there. This tiny home, in partnership with the Center for Dynamic Learning, is to be able to provide, provide a tiny home for a year, 2 max, so that they can save money. These are veterans that may be just out of service. We have somebody that was 24 years served in the Army, and then just having retirement was not enough funding. We did help him with getting a part-time job and helping with benefits, but this tiny home would allow somebody for a year or 2 to be able to save money, participate in our programs. In exchange, they will help out around the ranch, and they will live here at no cost to them, so that they can save money and then go off and buy their own place. So this is our goal. So this is all the information regarding the tiny home is there on the property. It is in the middle of our 11 acres, so it's well within any parameters of our the side perimeters or the back or the front.
Okay, Randall, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't.
Okay,
Danny, if I could,
sure.
I just wanted to note for the record that all the green cards have been received, adequate posting and advertising notices have all went out, all the fees paid, so all the administrative is taken care of. So we're good on that end. I was just gonna offer to you through the chair, Karen, did you want me to post do a screen share of the PowerPoint? Did you want to go through that?
It's up to you. If anyone needs that, we can do, if you have the screen share. I don't have it set up in front of me right now, but if nobody has seen it, you want to do a screen share to go through it, you're welcome to do that. It's basically it's set up for handicapped accessible, even though if somebody's working the ranch, the way it's set up, they're not going to be in a wheelchair. But it has a bathroom, a kitchen. It has a pull-out couch and kitchen space for temporary housing.
It might be worth flipping through it one time for everybody, Michael, if you will. Okay,
Karen, do you? I can allow screen share. Just it might be easier for you to flip through it as you go through it.
I don't have it ready.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I'll put it
Okay.
up then. No problem. Yeah, hold on.
And just so we're clear, this is Center for Dynamic Learning is the ones that are building this. We're providing the space for it. So I'm not the engineer
Okay.
to go over any details besides what's in your PowerPoint.
And so just a note before I go ahead and share the screen, Karen, so you'll go ahead and just take us through, and this is just for the court stenographer's benefit, just so there's no voices that are being heard that she can't keep track of.
Okay.
So just while it's up, Karen, if you just want to take us
Okay.
through it. There you go.
So this is the information about Center for Dynamic Learning, what they're offering for the benefit of a tiny home. Again, details about Center for Dynamic Learning, who they are. And here's a picture of it. It's painted. They have double wide doors there for access. They have windows. This is kind of a view of what it would look like. Bathrooms at the end, living space in the middle, kitchen at the other opposite end. Again, just different pictures. What it looks like, different ideas. You can keep scrolling. Eat-in kitchen, mini fridge, air fryer, convection oven. So the water is basically set up like a water cooler system. You have the 5-gallon, 2 or 36-gallon. Sorry, trying to read what he has in here. Basically, like a water cooler, two tanks that will go through the filtration system that goes to the sinks. The waste can go through an RV disposal center or like the porta potty that I have here on site that can remove the waste through, excuse me, from what I spoke to CDL today was that if they use certain products like Dawn dish soap or certain toothpaste, then it can be considered completely recyclable and can water our flower gardens and things like that. So it wouldn't even need to go into the waste. Composting toilet turns it into soil. Again, the water system goes into the tanks, and depending on the certain soaps that they can use, it can go right into the flower gardens, or if need be, we can use the company that pumps out our porta johns to remove that waste. And this is information on the heating system, taking the water and pumping it through for the bathroom, for the hot water, for the shower. Solar panel, and then it's also set up that if needed, we can use a generator. That's the waste systems, is 2 tanks that can be emptied, like I said, depending on the products that are used. If they use certain products, it can go right into the flower gardens. I don't know if you received the letter or the email that was sent from the Department of Health today, talking about that and the water use. And that's just the living room, living space, studio, bedroom. Again, it's a couch, pull-out couch. And that's the contact information for Center for Dynamic Learning if you need any further information.
Okay, thank you very much. So before we call on any of the interested parties, I'd like to take the application and the PowerPoint presentation and declare that Exhibit A. Okay. So we will now ask for any interested parties, any abutters first that are in favor of this application that would like to speak. You can all use the raise hand if for some reason you need that as well.
I
Okay.
do not see any of my abutters on here.
Okay, so we'll ask a couple more times. If there's any abutters in favor of the application that would like a chance to speak, and any abutters in favor of the application that would like to speak. Okay, thanks everyone. So now we'll ask for any and all abutters who are in opposition of the request that would like to speak. Are there any abutters in opposition who would like to speak? Are there any abutters in opposition that would like to speak? Okay. And then the last is there any other interested parties among us that would like a chance or an opportunity to speak? Any interested parties that would like to speak? Okay, and final call for any interested parties that would like to speak. Okay. So now I think we'll take some time to have the board ask you some questions about your project and your request, if that's okay.
Okay.
So is there any questions that the board would like to pose to Karen Randall?
Just have one. So this is actually a recycled tractor trailer. In the trailer itself. Am I
It's
correct?
a cargo container, 8x40 cargo container. Yes.
8x4. Okay, thank you. Nice. That's really cool.
From when they get deployed, they'll have several people living in this one container, and it's now going to be a very nice tiny home.
Oh, great. Great way to recycle it. Thank you.
Okay, I just have a few questions for you as well, Karen, if you're all set, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
And if no one else has any questions, I'll just jump in with a few questions. So, I think, I guess before we're jumping into anything, I think just to be clear, I think what you are doing, Karen, with your organization of Dare to Dream is commendatory, and certainly, in my personal opinion, I think that we can't do enough for our veterans. But if we do ask some questions, it's not regarding your cause at all. It's more about questions to try to help determine, some of the information in your request. So there's a part of my questions that I'd love to ask because, when I hear the sort of use case number 7 of lodging, it makes me think of sort of all the hurdles you're going to have to cross through the building official, and I think that they'll take care of many of those questions. Certainly, because as I read through some of the zoning ordinance today, I did find several areas where it talks about how the dwellings have to have their own septic systems. So I think that you expressed how there was composting toilets in pieces, but to actually get it declared as a lodging, guest house, or bed and breakfast, have you investigated the needs of potentially having to have it as a septic system if the building officials deem so?
No, from my understanding, it is a sustainable unit that will not need a septic system. Based on the way it was built, and the CDL has been working with the state builder inspector, so they have met the needs at that level. They have made many changes, very costly changes, trying to deal with our town building inspector, and over the last several months, and we don't have our current building inspector, so he can't even get in touch with the person that's filling in for our local position right now. But they've made every change that has been recommended for this unit to fit into Foster. But as far as the unit itself, it is not required to have a septic system or a well.
Okay, I think I'll leave that up to the building official to manage that piece.
Yeah, Manny, I'll just comment that, yeah, of course, the sewerage is going to have to be approved through who we have filling in for the building official. So that'll need to meet, those codes. So certainly that'll be addressed when it comes to issuing a building permit and a certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, and a couple of my other questions revolve around that, so it's probably the same, because Karen, there's a thought of the frost heaves and the requirements of sort of foundation type structures, and just trying to understand if you've gone through any of that or have worked on understanding what that may be impacted in sort of your proposal to put a unit on the property, because
So my understanding, the shipping container itself does not need frost heaves. It is a self-contained unit. And again, I'm not the engineer, so I'm going by, what CDL is giving me and what they've been working with the state building inspector and being approved. I know they just got approved to build 30 of them in Providence. So I believe through the state building inspector, it has met all the requirements for all that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that it's completely, our purview to do anything more than put a couple of these conditions into the requirement, that you at least have to get those looked at as we move through motions. I do have a few other questions. You mentioned handicap accessible. Has there been any thoughts or investigation on ADA requirements for the facility?
So the program for this tiny house is they are working the ranch in exchange for living here. So they need to be able to paint barns, get on ladders, mow lawns, weed whack, all of that stuff. If they can't do that stuff, that negates the program. They're living there in exchange for working the ranch at no cost to them.
Yeah, I think that makes clear sense. I was more asking if there was any conditions that were sort of put on you from the type of work you're doing that would require this dwelling to actually meet ADA requirements.
No, it wasn't me. It was them. It was because they were building something in the city with inner city kids, that the unit that they needed to build has to meet those requirements, even if it's not going to be used for those requirements.
Okay. Just one question to Joanne. There was, if you can help, there was a lot of great discussions that happened at the planning meeting, as entertaining as it was.
Oh, please.
Is it okay to reference some of those, Joanne, specifically?
Reference them in terms of you want to follow up on the comments and ask some questions? Yes, it's completely appropriate.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Joanne. So there was a couple of, again, this is very like code specific and building specific, Karen. Yep. There was a mention that it was a bedroom, it wasn't a bedroom, and then it kind of went on forward to there's no electrical in the no electrical outlets, and being from that industry, as I understand, building code actually requires them at a certain periodicity, it's actually interesting. I probably know too much about this subject, but its requirement is actually for the individual's safety, not necessarily from an electrical safety point of view. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of codes in the electric code that covers that, but do you have any updates on the electrical in the facility? Hearing that there wasn't going to be any provisioned was a bit of a concern from somebody who's in the space.
So there are electrical outlets, but it is, as you can see in the PowerPoint presentation, it's a solar panel battery that's powering the electrical. So there's a refrigerator, there's electrical outlets in there. but it's powered by solar panels.
Yeah. Okay, I understand.
With a, yeah,
It's really not, how do I say, it's not the generation or the supply of electricity that's a concern. It's the periodicity of how the electrical and what types of electrical outlets are in the building, which again, I think is going to be the building officials' responsibility to drive that question.
right. I did ask for a mechanical, an architectural, and an electrical engineering report. I got the PowerPoint presentation from that. So, I mean, anything further, I would say would be through the building inspector as far as, you know, what's approved and what's not. But again, he's been working with the state building inspector and trying to coordinate back and forth with who's filling in here.
Yeah, it may be important to try to catch, our electrical official, and maybe even the plumbing official to see what they think about the design, because typically the drawings that are supplied for that are very specific about outlets being every 12 feet apart, the types of circuit protection that's required to make sure that the occupant is safe. Okay, I guess a couple last questions. As I read through the zoning ordinances, I noticed that there was a use type. It's number 11. It's called rest home or convalescent home. Have you thought of maybe the implications of this or a convalescence type home as a use case? Hearing that it's sort of trying to help somebody recover versus lodging?
Based on working with Michael, this was the recommended avenue to go for the special use.
Okay, and as I understand, the building or the unit, the structure is supposed to house no more than 2 people. From what I learned, is that still the case?
That is.
Okay. So I've been asking a lot of questions. Does the rest of the board have any that they would like to join in?
Yeah, I do. Chair, it's Jim.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Ms. Dalton, again, I want to emphasize what the chair had said. I think the work you're doing is wonderful and very necessary. My goal in asking these questions is to make sure that we're following the Code of Ordinances, specifically for Chapter 38. And after reading all the materials, I believe the application can be considered somewhat confusing as to the purpose of use of the premises, as it compares to what basically you said in your letter dated April 10th, I believe. So I keep seeing the word overnight camp for the use, for the special permit use here in your application.
That got changed.
Okay.
That got changed. So it went from, because the advisement that I had from our town was to be called an overnight camp, and they, at the before the previous meeting last month, changed it and said, no, that's not what it should be under. It should be under the new one. So this is all guidance from our town.
Yeah, so just clarification, sorry to interrupt, Jim. Just for clarification, yeah, that was the case. The overnight camp, because there's no category for that overnight camp, there's only a category for day camp, and obviously that's restricted to daytime. There's no overnight possibilities with that use category. So it was mine and Joanna's recommendation that they proceed with the lodging. We thought that was the most appropriate use category for them to apply for. You should have an updated memo. Yeah. From Karen. I think it's probably dated May, which just changes that language in the cover letter that you were referencing from day camp to.
All right. So just a point of procedure then. What was presented and what's made public is this current application that you provided in the documents that we gathered, right? So I'm still reading what everyone in the public's reading, overnight camp.
No, a whole new letter was sent
Oh, a
out.
whole new letter.
Town sent out a whole new letter, which is why we had to wait a whole nother month.
Okay, so there's an application that I'm not, is it, I don't have that application, and I opened up all the documents you provided, Michael. I don't see that application where it's changed.
Yeah, the cover letter in effect changed the
Okay,
application.
is the cover letter available? I'm reading an April 10th
Yes.
cover letter entitled Dear Mark. That's what I downloaded. Is there another letter that I didn't read?
Yes.
Okay,
I do. So there might be some. Sorry, just a kind of points of order. The April 10th letter in paragraph 2 does go into changing the use to number 7, which is why we're here today. Is it a possibility that the date wasn't changed on the letter that we have in our possession? Because it does say, the one that I have in front of me says April 10th, 2021, paragraph number 2, let's call it midway down, says use number 7 under residential uses, which is the lodging, guest house, bed or breakfast. Just trying to understand what's in front of us.
okay, I know exactly what you're talking about, Manny. I see the letter. You're right. The date wasn't changed, but the content was changed.
Yes.
Lodging, guest, I see that. I see that now. So that cover letter supersedes the actual application. Why wouldn't an application that's made public for this meeting be updated to reflect it? Why wouldn't the application itself be updated?
I was just asked to update the cover letter.
The
That's what
only
I was
reason,
asked to do.
and the only reason I'm asking is the word or use of the word overnight camp. The use of number 7 in the Code of Ordinances for use, lodging, guest house, and bed and breakfast. I don't believe that is appropriate either. I thought, as the chair said, number 11 was getting closer. This is why I'm asking Ms. Dalton. What I'm concerned about, and not about your intent and the good work you're doing, what I'm concerned about is actually the special use permit requirements that essentially says that the special use is specifically authorized by Chapter 38. The totality of what I'm hearing is that this type of housing, one is, I didn't realize it could even fit 2 people. It looks like it's more suited for 1 person. The application itself is vague in the number of units. In the application itself, that's the public record, of how many of these units there will be. It provides the shipping container dimensions, but it doesn't limit it to that it's 1 unit only we're approving. And 2, the actual purpose and intent of what we're accomplishing as a special use really isn't for lodging, B&B, and that type of guest house, because the actual person that would occupy that unit would be working and using it as temporary housing, because they don't have permanent housing, as they're going through, according to your letter, with certain basically efforts of therapies, different types of therapies for this individual, which is all very commendable. Again, what I'm concerned about is the procedural hurdles we're faced with, both in the application as well as meeting the requirements to approve this type of a variance. So with that said, I do have some questions I would like to go through, if you don't mind, Ms. Dalton, that are very specific. So, and this is for the record, and since it's not clear in the application, that's why I'm just asking. How many CDL units are you requesting to be installed on the property?
Right now, we're doing 1. If that
Okay.
goes through and we need another one in the future, we will go before the town to ask for a second one.
Okay. And how many clients will use each CDL unit?
1. And, when one goes in, the only reason why we said 2 was if they had a guest, stay with them. In the planning meeting, they were like, well, no more than 1 person can be in there. I'm like, okay, so you're going to tell a grown adult they can't have a guest? That's not really, feasible.
Okay.
But
So-
I think there's a difference between saying a guest and saying another resident. So, you know, somebody might have an overnight guest for a few days a week, but you are only going to have one veteran residing there.
Correct.
That veteran is not eligible
Correct.
to have somebody move in with them. Like, it can't be a veteran and
There's not enough room. There's not enough room for a second person to
Yeah,
move
that's what I
in.
thought. That's what I thought. So,
And,
So
and
again,
again,
go-
it's one person per either 1 year or per 2 years, however long they stay. If they only need 1 year, if they only need 6 months, they're out in 6 months, and you know, and we're offering it to somebody else. So
okay,
it
that's
de-
fair.
It depends
Now-
on that client.
now, this is, I don't know if this is a legal question for council or one I'll just ask for you, Ms. Dalton, but so generally speaking, we're approving a special use permit for some, we'll just generally call it for some sort of temporary lodging.
Lodging.
Okay, so for lodging. Now, that special use permit, does the special use permit then limit the special use to one individual at one time for that one unit? Or does this special permit allow then the use of, say, overnight use by, they could set tents up around around that unit, SDL unit, but there could be all sorts of people in tents. Does that or do we have to limit that condition? What's the intent here of where you're going with this, Ms. Dalton? Because the special use permit allows for the use as lodging. You're associating it to the SDL unit, but
CDL unit.
CDL
And
unit, I
yes,
mean.
it is
So-
that one specific unit. There will not be tents. This is not tent city. I'm not
Okay.
setting up tents. This is a unit to be able to house one person, to be able to help them save money. For instance, if you have somebody that's 100% disabled, they're going through a divorce, they're living out of their car, or they're living out of their office. This allows them a space to call their own while they save money and move forward.
and that's fair. And you see why I'm asking these questions. I'm trying to elicit from you the responses that make this easy to go through a process of approval here. Because again, I don't want to leave for special use permits. The ordinance does allow us to put conditions on the approval. So this helps us understand, me personally, understand what your
And that's why
purpose is.
the planning committee had recommended that this is for veteran use only. Like a civilian can't come and stay in it because they're going through a similar situation. It's for veteran only. And it's only if the Dare to Dream Ranch still runs this facility. If this facility, for whatever reason, I drop dead tomorrow, and somebody can't fund this program, then, and it gets sold, then the tiny home has to go.
Yeah, yeah, and I understand. Yeah, I understand that. I did read over the planning board's recommendation. Unfortunately, I found it deficient in not providing any findings. It just generally said it meets within the planning. Didn't give it much detail. So hence I'm asking these questions. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna bear with me and bear with it. So again, why I'm concerned is with the specific number 7 use with regard to lodging, guest house, and bed and breakfast. Usually that type of categorization is transactional. There's some sort of a compensation, remuneration involved. So help me understand how is the funding for this occurring? What is the funding method for the CDL unit? And is it just a block grant? Is it specific to this individual?
It is
How
not,
is this
it
funded?
is not specific to the individual. It is specific to the program. It is so that a veteran, not a specific veteran, a veteran would live in this house for 1 to 2 years in exchange for working the ranch and participating in our program so that they can save money. It's one veteran at a time.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
And the compensation to be able to build this unit, CDL got grant funding to teach inner city at-risk youth engineering and building skills to build the unit. They're building it. They're bringing it here. I fundraise from my own nonprofit. Any
Sure.
expenses insurance is gonna go up, everything else that's related to this is through my nonprofit. We fundraise for that.
Okay, thank you. Now, for this type of program, just a basic question. Again, I'm trying to, again, I'm struggling with it fitting into lodging, guest house, and bed and breakfast, because generally those are transactional type arrangements with people that come in. They're not under some sort of a support system, some sort of therapies support. And therefore, what is the intake process? In other words, you're having residents come into temporary housing. There is some sort of requirement that they fit into, one being a veteran, and two, there is some requirements there for support. Now you're having, now you, instead of just day activities, we're doing overnight. So what is your screening and intake process for that individual or individuals that would be residing there?
The veteran would have to provide their DD 214 form to prove that they are a veteran. They will have to go through documentation that says that they are above poverty and they have not, they do not qualify for other programs. And they will sign a contract that says that they will, in exchange for working the ranch, they will live there at no cost to them.
Okay. That was the extent of my questions. Thank you for bearing with me on those. Appreciate it. Back to you, Manny.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Jim, for the questions. I have more questions, a few more questions, but wanted to make sure we gave some time to the other board members. Anyone else have some questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead, Donna.
Hello, Karen.
Hi, Donna.
As other people have said, I just want to echo that I believe that what you're doing is a very noble cause. I have a couple of questions about the container. One of them is, I'm wondering if we should have some kind of conditions on approval as far as maintenance goes. I don't know too much about them, but I did a cursory search on Google about how long a container might last, and it kind of varies from 15 to 25 years. And I don't really know what the upkeep is, but I'm just wondering if there's a maintenance plan, if you have some kind of plan for painting it or just making sure it doesn't become an eyesore. And also, do you have a plan for removal? If you decide, maybe 5 years from now, this isn't really working out, it's not what we thought it was going to be, is there a plan in place for removing the container? Or even if it does work out and the unit starts to decay, rust, it's uninhabitable and you need a new one, is there some kind of a plan for that?
Just like our house, right? I mean, some people live in a place where somebody decides what they can paint their house and what they can't paint their house and how they mow their lawn or not mow their lawn or anything like that. In Foster, we do not have that, that I know of. But, typical maintenance, if something needs to be fixed, you fix it. If it needs to be replaced, we need a whole new shipping container, then we will partner with, organization or figure out how we need to fix it. It's going to be, just like any other residence that somebody's going to be living in, we'll take care of it. As far as eyesore, unless you're going to walk into the middle of my 11 acres, you will never see it.
And Donna, I'll just comment quickly. I know you're specifically, it sounds like your question is specific towards the maintenance of the structure and the viability of it long-term. But just know that there is a state property maintenance code that can be enforced as well.
I was just going to ask Jim. I know, Jim, that you were saying that number 7 doesn't really sit well with you because it doesn't seem to fit the lodging, guest house, or bed and breakfast. And I don't disagree with that. But I know that I think Karen said that she was advised by the town to go that route.
Yes.
What alternative is there that would better
Well,
fit her plan?
See, that's a great question, and
See, Joanne's
I'm
saying
trying
no.
to be
She's
careful
our
here.
legal
I'm trying to be careful here
town-
because, and this is what the concern is. You see, the problem is the language in the ordinance is clear that if there isn't a specific use designation, what's the proper word? A description of use that fits, it technically shouldn't be approved. I think what we're trying to all do is try to make this work, but I'm concerned that our ordinance hasn't contemplated this type of shelter or concept properly, and I don't believe Foster has ever had this type of a use. Even though it's minimal right now, it may not be. It just, we haven't done this before, and I'm not sure if I haven't seen the findings of the planning board, so I don't know if the consideration of this at the council level, the town council level, of this type of a concept of temporary shelter for people in need is part of our code right now. That's the concern I have.
Can I comment on that?
Absolutely, of course. Thank you.
I think 7 does fit it perfectly. I mean, you can't take it as the ordinance. I know it does say lodging, comma, guest house or bed and breakfast. However, the definition of a lodging fits perfectly. I mean, a lodging is a place in which someone lives or stays temporarily, and that's what we're looking at, is a temporary lodging.
I'm actually leaning with you on that, Robert.
Cut out that one step.
It's yeah. If I just narrow it to that, I'm with you generally. It's just the totality of the provision that's I'm thinking it more transactional in my head, that there's a compensation. I'm just concerned. That's all. I'm not saying it's a binary choice right now. That's what I'm struggling with.
Huh?
You overcomplicate.
I know I had the
May
stuff
I?
I was gonna, and then
Hey, we have a few
Hold on.
folks on that aren't on mute. I can't mute them, Michael, but
Yeah, I was just gonna ask the person who called in, if you were intending on speaking, just identify yourself. Otherwise, I'm just gonna put you on mute.
thank you, Michael. So Karen, you had your hand up while these two gentlemen
Okay.
are talking. Take the floor for a moment.
Yes, Joanna, can you please explain why you chose this and how you see as our town solicitor, how this fits in?
I lost a voice.
I think Mike and I looked at the table, and it is temporary housing. And I, aside from lodging, I find it more similar to a guest house, which in my opinion is, a fancier way to kind of say like a boarding house, which is typically a little bit more of an extended stay than maybe a hotel. But I do think that the fact that it is temporary housing, there is a prohibition on any type of permanency there. It does fit in. I understand Jim's comment about the transactional nature, but if somebody wanted to set up a hotel and say, we don't really have purview over the fact that what they charge, how much they're charging, what their rates are, as long as it is not a permanent residence for anybody, or some type. So I think that's my thought process, was this is similar to a guest house, and that's where it would fit in. I don't think, it's not that I was trying to kind of fit a square peg into a round hole. I do think it fits there well. And when I looked, that is what I thought fit. As far as the rest home or the convalescent home, that is more like a nursing home or somewhere where.
How come I can't hear anybody?
Assistance, and the Department of Health needs to license those. So that would not be, it wouldn't be fitting here.
Yeah, and Joanne, I brought up the convalescent only because from what I know of the Dare to Dream Ranch, it talks about the therapy that they provide to our veterans, and it was sort of a connection to that, because it does seem like it's more of that rehabilitation stay that the Dare to Dream folks were looking for. But that's why I bring it up solely. And I think
So
Jim's
Convalescent homes would have licensed health professionals, and we do not.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened.
again, I'm not sure if there's other questions, but what I would say, Karen, is if there wasn't necessarily drawings of a container, I think this could have moved a little easier, because I think it would have been upon the type of request and that you could have dealt with. But there's lots of questions that now surround that added information of the type of structure, because I think any way you look at it, whether 7 is the best or 11 is the best, there's a permanency to the structure that comes to my mind when I react to the words lodging, guest house, and bed and breakfast.
And on YouTube.
And
Can
sorry, there's a lot of
can you-
feedback.
click on this?
Yeah,
I'm not
so
sure
man,
who's-
so Chair, I mean, so man, if I can let me just sum up my the specific language in chapter 38. It states any use not expressly permitted in this article is prohibited. And that's what my concern is, because technically when you're in lodging, guest house, or bed and breakfast, you're not going through therapy.
No.
You're not in temporary
How do
housing.
you speak or increase the volume to hear?
I'm having
So-
a little trouble because there's 2 people talking.
Sorry, Tim, just wait 1 second. Michael, can you send a note to Bob Moreau that we can hear him loud and clear, whether he can hear us or not?
Okay, yeah, I just muted him.
Okay, he's very
So-
distracting. Sorry.
I got
Yeah,
you, sorry.
So again, to state, if I was spoken over, that what my concern is that I don't believe this possibly is expressly permitted, in the sense that lodging, guest house, and bed and breakfast use is usually not married with the component of therapy and what the good intention is there. So I believe that the foster use description of uses isn't accounting for this type of a good purpose use. And we are trying to fit a square peg in a round hole to try to accommodate it. My concern is it really is something at the town council level. Unfortunately, I didn't attend the planning board meeting, and I unfortunately believe that the planning board didn't do in providing us with findings. They just gave a recommendation. And that's not helpful, unfortunately, for me.
So they did say that they found it to be within the planning requirements for the town and met the needs and requirements of that.
Yeah,
Karen, I mean, Ms. Dalton, I agree. The board determined the special use permit as requested is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Unfortunately, they should have really transmitted us more detail about the findings of why they're stating that. They aren't getting over the hurdle the zoning board has is over the use of this is not really expressly permitted for. If you read the context of number 7, lodging, guest house, bed and breakfast, and if you just read go and do a dictionary search of those specific words,
It meets
we're
lodging.
mixing some things. It meets
lodging.
lodging, but it's not just lodging. The actual special use of this is to provide therapy. The lodging is
No,
ancillary.
it's to
that
provide,
purpose.
no, I already provide the therapy. Where the special use is to provide lodging on my property outside of the current house. That is what the special use is.
And quickly, Manny, if I may, and there is an approved special use permit already on the property, which is consistent with the day camp, which is what Karen's referring to, which is the day camp is what provides that therapy, as I
So
understand.
now we're adding the additional special use to add lodging. That's it.
And Manny, Joe has his hand up whenever you're ready to move on. I don't mean to cut Jim
No,
short.
I'm good.
Please,
You
go
my
ahead.
questions, I'm good.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Jim. Joe, the floor is yours.
Okay, I understand the concerns of everybody. It is kind of an odd request, and I had concerns in the beginning of the type of unit, thinking it, comparing it to a trailer, which we do not allow in Foster. My biggest concern was with special use permit, it goes with the property. I think, in my opinion, the first two conditions from the planning board's recommendation will protect the town in the future, that, you know, if the 501c or the organization no longer exists, the special use no longer exists. So being that it's for the veterans and it's a unique situation, I think as long as we make sure that, you know, that down in the future, if Karen or the owners sell the property, that they cannot transfer it to somebody to open this as a public place. I think it protects the town in many ways. And I think those were my biggest concerns. And I do understand, you know, I know the ordinances are difficult a lot of times, trying to find places to fit things, because you never could imagine what's going to come before you, because there's a million things that you never thought about when you're putting ordinances together. So I think lodging is appropriate, or you know, or any of those uses. So I think, you know, as long as we protect the town with the conditions that the planning board put forth, I think it would make me, it makes me feel better, because it covered my concerns, but I can understand it is very confusing. But that's all I had to say.
Okay, I'm not sure where or how this question gets addressed, but the thought of insurance in itself, because you're taking on you know, a guest of lodging, does that and maybe this question is actually for Joanne, is there a town requirement for what we would ask because of a type of lodging use like this?
Who would you want the insurance, the benefit to inure to? The town?
I'm bringing it up just because I'm unsure of it being,
it's not on town property, so it's going to go through my insurance that we will have an extra unit, and the insurance will decide what type of insurance needs to be added to that to protect the person living there as well as us.
Oh, and you. I mean, I with respect to trying to, Manny's question is, can we require insurance? If it was something that the town could be potentially held liable for, or something that the town had some potential exposure to liability, sure, we could require it. But I don't see a circumstance that we would be held liable for anything.
Yeah, I bring it up simply. I have a little checklist here, the questions that I had, and I'm trying to give everyone time. But the thought was, it's sort of, I think of it as like a motel. I know that's too temporary, but does the town require any insurance conditions of the motels and the okay, that was good. And again, just to clarify, I learned at the planning board that the thought was somewhere for maximum 2 years of a stay. What is, and maybe Joanne, this is for you. Do you have a recommendation or understanding of what's more temporary? So like a hotel, what is that? I thought I heard Warren kind of give some of those details. Is trying to understand conditions. Is it got to be more than 30 days? But not to exceed 2 years. Is that the thought? More so on the minimum side. What becomes transient, or even less than temporary?
Less than temporary?
Meaning, like we're terming this temporary housing for up to 2 years, but arguably a hotel stay of 2 or 3 weeks could be temporary. And that's not an understanding of the use of what's being requested. Is it?
No. Joanne, just as a point, you can stay in a hotel for 2 years if you wanted to. The former mayor of Providence, Joe Doyle, lived in a hotel for 5 years at the Biltmore. That was temporary housing. There's no such thing as a time limit on temporary housing.
But Manny, were you trying to talk about like a minimum stay so that it wasn't, you're not asking about maximum. You're more saying, do the people have to stay there more than 2 days or something? Is that what you're?
Absolutely. I wasn't high end is not my
So
concern.
Are you going to force people to stay there?
No, I think that.
So if they get there and they don't like it and they say, this isn't for me, I'd rather go live in my office, are you going to force them to?
I'm not enforcing anything, Karen. I'm asking a question because the understanding is this is temporary housing, and
Right.
At 30 days, it doesn't sound temporary. It sounds like somebody's, coming in for a short stay. And I'm not your neighbor, I'm not in a butter, but the thought of every 30 days of a new face coming into town is very, very different than I think your intention. And I was trying to understand the bookends of when you bring in somebody, I know you're going to have them work off a little of the energy, but are you going to require them like a minimum stay of at least 6 months or,
No.
Okay, so
I'm not going to require somebody that it's not a good fit for them. You're going to force somebody with PTSD, anxiety, and depression, and you're going to say you're in jail. Basically, you're required to stay here. No.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just trying to understand that low end because I don't think your intention is to roll somebody in and out every 30 days. I think your true intention.
It's not my intention, but again, I'm not going to, handcuff somebody and say you can't leave. So,
but I do think that the guest house lodging kind of bed and breakfast does also lend itself to a one night stay. But from my understanding is these people have to actually go through an application process. So likely you wouldn't have somebody in there every other night or something like that.
Not likely, but I'm sure the deer wouldn't mind or the coyotes said it would be behind the unit. So,
And Karen, could I ask a question of you?
Hey. Yes.
And Karen, tell me if I'm correct, but did you mention that they have to sign an agreement with you?
They signed an agreement that they're working the ranch in exchange for living there for free. So I am working with an attorney to have a signed agreement that, they're not going to come in and they're going to basically be a squatter and refuse to meet the requirements of living there. The goal is, you gotta have some skin in the game. I'm gonna let you live here and save your money, but you're gonna maybe mow the lawn once a week. You're gonna, help do something around the ranch while you're here.
Or whatever it takes.
Right. Whatever it is, paint the barn. I don't know, whatever, but there's something that you're gonna have the skin in the game to live here.
And your intention isn't to trying to get them to, commit to coming in and using your space for at least a minimum time?
No. As if somebody comes in and they're here 30 days and they, for whatever reason, come across a different circumstance that allows them to have an apartment or a house or, something that is a better circumstance for them, they're free to go. This isn't, they didn't sign a contract with the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. They're free to go.
Yeah, I understand that. It was more about the intention that I was trying to understand versus you handcuffing them to the bed.
So the intention is we're giving them this space for 1 to 2 years. That's our intention, allowing them to be able to have a safe space to live, participate in our programs, and save money to be able to have their own place.
May I give an example here? So I'm service connected, this, that, and me and the wife, we get in a fight, we get divorced, split up. I find out about Dare to Dream. She has a space available for me. I don't have first and last month's rent to go put on an apartment because I just got in an argument with my wife and we're divorced and she's getting half of whatever. So now I need a chance to save up and get things going, and I got to get my mind right. So there's 22 vets a day that kill themselves. If we try to save one by giving them that opportunity to come out here, give them a space where they can get on their feet and save up their money to get going in a new life and get their head straight. You know, everybody wants to work. A lot of times these vets can't find jobs. So once they get out here, they get to working, then they get motivated and go find a job. And the whole thing is to get them up and running. If it takes them 30 days, if it takes them 2 years, if it takes them a year, we got that man or that woman on their feet, headed in the right direction. So the whole thing is here is how do we make it happen? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions before we move to recess? Okay, so I don't hear anyone from the board with any further questions. So I'm going to move to recess, and we'll discuss now. Okay, thanks. So among the board, the confusing part to me is trying to understand the type of structure which I think is actually for the building folks to actually manage what's allowable. I think it actually complicates this to understand how that's going to happen. Trying to understand the pieces, or the planning board made several great recommendations. I didn't know if you wanted to discuss any of those before we come out of recess to understand the motion.
Mandy, do you want to mark the planning board recommendation as what, exhibit B?
Yeah, I didn't know if that was okay if it wasn't officially signed off yet.
That's fine.
It's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and can I do that? Can I do that in recess, or should I do that coming out of?
We can do it when we come out.
Okay.
I have a couple of suggestions to that once you guys have discussed that I heard you talk about during the meeting that you may want to consider adding to the special conditions in addition to the two. I think Mike added two that are helpful.
Yeah, in the draft motion, you'll see that I listed on the bottom the planning board's recommendations for conditions of approval, and then you'll see planner recommendations for conditions of approval.
Right. And I think that the board should consider the planning boards, but also Mike's too, because I think that those are important and meet some of the needs that we were talking about as far as affixing the structure to the property. We also talked about just having one resident, so I think you might want to add that in. My other suggestion is that for number 2, when we talk about being limited to use by veterans, you might want to say veterans in the, and I would say whether it's the Dare to Dream program or whatever Ms. Dalton is calling this particular program, so that we make sure that it is just people who are applying and that she's qualifying, because she's told us how she's going to qualify them. And then Manny, you mentioned something about an electrical approval or having the electrical inspector, and I don't know if you wanted to add that. Those are just my few cents.
That would have to be done anyway, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I believe yes.
Yeah, I think so. I might have missed one piece of that, but I'm trying to look if there was, I understand the separation of that document. Did you say, Michael, you said it was in the draft motion?
Yes, if you look on page 2.
Okay. So many to open up.
It came separate. It came in a separate email, Manny.
Okay.
Yeah, I can just screen share it real quick if you need.
Yeah, or my thought is, I thought I heard you say permanent structure or affixed to the property. I don't know if I misheard that, but there was a
No, that was
okay. There was a part of me that would have added that the understanding of this use case should be a permanent structure. If if whatever, again, I would I'm going to try to block out the container stuff. If it meets the permanent structure, then I don't really even need to understand that. But I also did. I would have also thought that there would have been a drawing of approximately where this was going to sit. We did hear the applicant mention that it's going to be in the middle of the 11 acres, but I didn't see a drawing of where it would be situated. Michael, am I missing that?
Yeah, that was included. Let me make sure it's in the Dropbox, but I'm pretty sure it was included.
Yeah, it was. I am.
That looked like the house.
Yes, it's in there.
House is over here. The middle of the property over here is where the.
I'm just going to go ahead and share the screen real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, see?
Oh, I didn't even, there was no designation. I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Yeah, the house is on the lower left.
For a minute, I thought that was a penciled sketch. Sorry, I didn't catch that was the location.
That was sketched in, but it was that is using a survey that was previously submitted with the last special use permit. So the last special use permit did have a site plan survey, which that is based on. So it's based on real information, even though it is sketched in by the applicant.
Okay. And I think it's suitable to have one dimension at 30 feet because it's never going to encroach that back boundary, or if it's spun around that point for a bit. Yeah. Okay. So I think that the permanent structure, I think that there's at least in my mind, there's at least a discussion that we should have around the timing. I understand that the low end was not appetizing, but I think to understand it was 1 to 2 years. Is there an appetite to actually understand the higher end at not being more than 2 years from the board?
Manny, it's Jim. I'm really not concerned about the individual's duration per se. I'm looking at the special conditions language in the chapter 38. And they talk about timing, but it's really around timing, duration of the actual special use permit itself, whether you want it approved for a year, and any conditions around that, not so much about the conditions of one of the residences being there for just no less than 30 days and no more than 2 years. I'm personally not concerned about that because I understand from Ms. Dalton, the intent and purpose.
Okay, and then I understand that there's an application process. And maybe Joanne, there's a thought here. Is the language of veteran enough, or should we extend to at least honorably discharged as one of those requirements?
I mean, I think that we would leave it as a veteran approved by, and whatever the name of, if it's the Dare to Dream program or whatever the name of the program that they're going through is. I don't think that you should put qualifications about discharge. I think that the veterans organization can handle that.
Okay, so understood. Okay, and then I'm not sure. Maybe Michael, you can help with this. Is at the very end of the use cases. I think it's the very end of 38-191. There's some note number 3. I'm not even sure if I understand it, but it says that must be screened by an opaque fence or hedge.
Hold on, let me bring it up so I'm looking at it.
Yeah, it seemed interesting that these notes were added to all.
You're looking at, excuse me, you're looking at 38-191?
Correct, the very, very, very end. Right where it talks through the key.
Under notes?
Correct.
Okay.
Number three just seemed purposeful, but I can't quite.
That is a footnote, and I don't. Excuse me. I don't think. Scrolling up to a lodging house. There's no there's no footnote attached to lodging house. So I think.
So
I
it's
think,
that.
I don't think
that
that applies. Correct me if
Okay.
I'm wrong.
Okay, I didn't know if it was for all of the special uses or if it was for the, the raised script. So perfect, thank you. For the
Yeah, I don't think, because if you go through the zoning use table, you'll see, an S and then a 1 for a footnote noted to it, that, and then I would direct my attention down to those notes for the corresponding note.
Okay, yeah, I thought that during the planning meeting, someone mentioned the size of the dwelling, and then I saw number 2, but there wasn't a footnote for that either. So I don't, and it's much smaller, so I don't think there's any constraints there. So I think we discussed the applicant. I think Joe put something in the chat. I didn't get to read it yet.
He agreed to all the conditions. He thought
Yeah.
they.
And that was all of the planning and planning board as well as Michael's.
Yeah, all the suggested ones on the draft motion to 5 or 7 or whatever they're on there. Mike's and land boards.
Yeah, I still haven't located it to read it with my own eyes yet, but I'll find it. Okay, I got it.
Manny, it's in the Dropbox under 12 Snagwood.
Yep.
And then once you look at Snagwood, it will say site plan. Is that what you were looking for, or the draft motion itself?
Yeah.
I found it. I just have every one of them open. So thank you. So I see. Yeah, I think I agree with Joe as well. I think the only one it doesn't mention, well, it does. It says compliance with all applicable building codes. So I agree. I'm satisfied as well with those as being conditions.
Manny, the only one additional point I saw limited to one unit. Should we limit it also to 1 unit, 1 individual?
That was
Yeah,
Joanna's.
I would say 1 resident, so you don't.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, one unit with, and 1 resident at a time.
I get you. The resident has a purposeful meaning. I get it. All right.
And then is the very first planning board suggestion simpler to just bring that down to limited to the applicant?
No, I think it should
Resident.
say applicant, owner, and lessee.
I know they talked through the ability to like move it to maybe new ownership or new leasees, but I didn't know if we should limit it just to the applicant.
Oh. You mean the special use permit itself?
Yeah,
No,
specifically.
it should be the applicant, owner, and the lessee as well, because she doesn't own the property. She's a lessee of the property. He's the owner. Yeah, I think the word is correct. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Karen made a mention in the chat that I was actually just going to say, and I was going to offer to Joanna. If we were just specific to, we limit it to Dare to Dream Ranch, would that be acceptable, do you think?
I think you need to include the owner of the property
Okay.
as well.
And the term applicant includes both, correct?
I mean, we can specifically say Dare to Dream Ranch and Randall Bagwell. I think instead of saying applicant, owner, and lessee, we can just put those names in. But Karen, I want to confirm that Dare to Dream Ranch is the one that's going to administer this housing program, right? Or are you going to use a different name?
I don't see her.
Yes,
Yeah.
she responded in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, I think it would be clearer from my layman's understanding to put Dare to Dream Ranch and Randall Bagwell, if that's if that's okay with the rest of the board as well.
Yes, that's fine with me, Manny. I think that's a good recommendation for change. Yep, that works because it sunsets if they sunset, right?
Yep.
I'd agree with that also.
And we're going to add in, I guess if I'm doing the math correctly, we're going to add in the number 6. That is to one resident. Yeah.
I think what we should do is that Mike's, where it says planner suggested, that should be number 4. And at the end of, after special use permit, the last words of that sentence, you can just add to be occupied by one resident at a time.
So at the end of number 1, is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay. And then the planner suggestion will be number 4.
A veteran resident or just resident?
I think we can call it a veteran resident. That's just further reiterates what the purpose is.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay, so that is an amendment to the first one, where veteran resident, and then they'll be listed as we go forward as 1 through 5, correct?
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I have the Word document, so I'll make the changes as we go, and then I will screen share so whoever's reading it can read it from my screen with the because we've not made the motion, so that the motion does not need to be amended or anything like that.
Okay, so Joanne, to be clear, you're doing the pen and ink, and you're gonna share it, and we're gonna read it, right, and then hopefully do the motions and pass it tonight.
If that is board's pleasure, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Joanna.
I just have to find, Mike, I know you emailed it to me, so I'm just trying to find.
Okay, so any more discussions for the board while we give Joanne a few minutes?
I guess the only question I just wanted to ask, and as we're looking at the condition, is everyone comfortable, just so we ensure we're all, when we vote, everyone's okay to approve or not, that we're okay just open-ending this, limiting it, in other words, having it to Dare to Dream, the landowner, and that there's no review, that we're just going to approve this for the unforeseeable future. We're not saying it's good for 1 year, it's good for 2 years to see. I'm just trying to go with your concern, Manny, regarding, well, how if there's a lot of transients, they're coming and going, and then we realize this approval isn't the way we thought it was going to go, and we can't claw it back.
Yeah, that's what I was attempting to try to tickle us all to think through. Because I know, I've heard and have followed a bit of the great work that the Dare to Dream Ranch has been doing. Joanne, is there a way to have it re-reviewed in 1 year's time or 2 years' time? Almost like a continuation?
No, it's either a grant or denial.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can say that the use expires in a year, but then they'd have to go through this process all over again, and that might not, you don't know what the next board would do.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my goal is not to cause that. I didn't know that, so I'm glad you answered that. my goal is not to cost them more money a year from now to redo the application and all this expense to go before the board. I just know that in the conditions in the ordinance, it does allow controlling the duration of use of the development. But what I'm hearing is if we say it's good for 1 year, they have to reapply again. And my intent is not to force that, personally, not to have that happen.
Yeah, I don't want that either. It was more of like a review of.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And again, I think that's Karen. I'm trying to keep up, listen and watch. Karen, I think, at least, speaking just from me directly to you, I'm trying to not think of the unit at all, because I don't believe that that's my purview or our purview. I think that the building officials are going to decide what type of structure will meet per these. So the replacement isn't even necessary in at least my opinion. I think whatever they say, if it's a unit that works on the property, congrats if that's the one you want. I don't know how the board feels about that, but I think that we've clarified that this is regardless, at least some of this discussion is regardless of what the structure is, as long as it meets these conditions. I think it's the size sort of pieces. Now on that note of the size, Michael, I don't know if that needs to be provisioned at all in here as a size, because if a building official has any changes, does the size matter?
Well, I would say, as it relates to what you may or may not be granting tonight, the size. I mean, typically, for any other special use permit or variance or anything you'd be approving through this board, I'd say any replacement of in kind of what is out there would be fine. But obviously, if it were to be replaced and expanded substantially, that would likely require new review through a board. I'm not sure if that's the question you were asking.
That helps tremendously. Is that if some condition comes back where the dimensions of the structure, the permanent structure, is altered, this approval does not account for that. A new one would have to be done.
You are approving what you have been submitted. So all the information that was in the PowerPoint, the information that's on the site plan, that's what you're approving. So if something different shows up, it would trigger a new approval.
Okay. So for the rest of the board, is there any more questions that we have of one another or discussions?
No, but just to be clear, what Michael's saying, and Manny, where you're going is, what I think you're getting at is the application specifically mentions the shipping container that's repurposed, and that the dimensions of that unit is 8 feet by 8 feet by 40 foot length. So are you trying to say we should be very explicit, we're approving that dimensional unit alone, that it can't be substituted for something different?
Yeah, I think you're catching part of it. I don't want to understand the structure. I want to understand the size. I think a building official will have to determine that. Again, I'll repeat that I personally believe that the container discussion is actually taken away from our capability to look at this as a request, because now we're looking at it as a very, very unique structure that we haven't seen, and requires a lot of research on the building and the type of use, because it's not the typical traditional connected to septics and have septic designs and whatnot. I think it actually confuses that. So this is not approving a containerized building, in my opinion. This is approving an 8 by 40 structure on the premises.
Yeah, and I don't think that you need to put in the motion that it's limited to that particular size, because we're approving the application as presented. So if they tried to do anything that was not as presented, then it wouldn't be in compliance. And if we're limiting it to one resident, I don't know why they would try to use something that was bigger, because I don't think that'd be cost efficient for their purpose.
And Joanne, I mean, maybe a little more help on that one is, I don't, if the building official says it's got to be built with, you know, traditional construction, and Dare to Dream Ranch agrees to do that, I think they should have, I think that this approves that. It's more of I don't believe that, at least my opinion is, I don't believe that a motion for or denied should be us approving containerized structures.
Right.
I believe. Right.
Right. No, it's not. But if I thought that the question was kind of like, well, what if they're going to then go put a bigger one? Well, they can only have one resident. So.
Yep. It's actually not about the size. I think is clear. It's that I want to be explicit that the zoning board isn't approving containerized buildings. Right. The planning board threw out lots of words like modular. We'll just tie wheels to it. I think that just complicates this. Now DOT is involved. I want to be clear that I don't know if it's a condition that we should add as a board that says that because it's an approval, that this is not approving containerized structures. It's approving a dwelling that's 8 by 40 that meets these conditions.
Right, Manny, I think I understand you. You're saying you don't want to be in the business of regulating building material.
Thank you, Michael. So I don't know if we should, or Joanne, if you have a recommendation for us, do we need to be explicit that you know, a condition is we're not approving the containerized type of structure. That's for a building official. If it meets, fantastic. If it doesn't, that's not, we're not approving the building materials.
I don't think that you need to do it, and I think it might muddy the water for their special use permit, but that is certainly what you're doing. I mean, you're just approving that they can have a facility on their property for lodging, guest house, bed and breakfast. That's what you're approving.
Okay. I just want to make sure that, you know, in our motion, because there's drawings of a containerized rendition, that is not what at least in recess, that's not what I was thinking. Is I'm not approving building materials. Is there a way to add that as a condition? Is that this approval is not a building material approval? You know, I don't know if that makes sense to articulate it the way Michael did. Is like this, a building official's duty is that, not ours. We're just allowing.
Right, you're trying to avoid the confusion of possibly a future building official or someone interpreting this decision later on down the road that it was specific to that because of the materials that were submitted. I'm struggling to figure out a way to add that as a condition. You know what we can do is that I'll make a point to note this in the minutes. Mm-hmm. And that way, if it becomes an issue, we'll have it memorialized in the minutes.
Well, and I think you don't need to make it a condition, but, well, first of all, I don't think it falls into what the specifications of the general laws for what conditions, you know, are supposed to be, because this is more of a statement. But in the actual decision, we may be able to put, you know, that the chair, you know, clarified that this approval is specifically for the use and not the structure, you know, the form of the structure. I'm sure we could fit that in the actual decision as more of a statement that was made during the meeting rather than the condition.
I just want to, I want to make sure that that's not the case. Even if we have to, wait to get better language, I would rather make sure that it's clear. And I don't want Karen or Randall, the Dare to Dream, to understand that we're over here saying put that container. We're actually not saying that. We're saying these are the conditions, and the building official will walk you through that. I don't know. I actually, at least at a minimum, Joanne, would like your suggestion to be added to the decision. I would personally feel more comfortable that it was part of the motion structure. And again, the board, I'm merely one voice with the rest of the board. I don't know that that's any of the, I guess, to quick poll of the board. This approval in your mind is not approving the building materials. Is that
No.
Donna, Jim?
Well, I unfortunately thought we were approving based on the actual submission, very specific to CDL. We were approving this repurposed container and its type of function and use off the grid, not a permanent structure that would then necessitate possibly tie into a septic and then tie it into, do we need DEM approval? I don't know. I went into this thinking we were approving this specific unit as submitted as part of the application. It's very specific to that CDL unit. It's the whole package around it is surrounding CDL and that unit. I thought we were approving just that, not a substitution of some other type of structure.
I thought we were approving a special use permit allowing Dare to Dream Ranch to have lodging on their premises to house a veteran for a short amount of time, up to 2 years. And I think that Dare to Dream Ranch, I'm under the impression they provided as much material as they could to facilitate us making a decision on this.
Hey, Joe, are you out there? Can you chime in too, just so I can understand a little bit of how you weigh in here as well? Because I'm aligned with Donna and Bob as well, that I thought it was just a special use permit. I'm not in the business of understanding material choices. Joe, you out there?
Well, I think special use permit is for the overnight lodging or guest house. The type of unit that they were showing us, I was assuming that's what they were going to put up there, and I'm pretty sure that's probably what they will use unless there is some type of a problem. But I think, you know, as long as it's conforms to that dimension and it's similar to that unit, because that is a big part of it being self-contained and all that, you know, that's part of the application. So if they decided to put a different structure, I don't think it would fit with the application.
Yeah, I agree with Joe. I think the application's so specific that there would be an issue if they were doing a substitution. So I'm okay with the motion. I'm okay with, to be honest with you, that I think we're covered. That's all. I don't think we need any specific language or anything.
Okay, so at a minimum, Joanna, maybe just a note from the chair, just to clarify that at least my thoughts are not that we're being involved in building material choices.
But I think that what you're saying and what Jim and Joe are saying, they're not irreconcilable.
Right.
You want to be clear that they didn't come before you. That your decision here is not saying, okay, we're approving this style of housing. You just want to be clear about that. But yes, the application, what they're constructing on the property does have to conform to the application. So I think they're both the same, but you want to make clear that this decision by no means means that this type of housing can be put up anywhere in the town. And that's very easily done. I will add it in the decision.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So anything further discussion from the board before we come out of recess?
I just want to remind everybody to fill out your standards worksheet.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Got mine right here. Okay. So we're going to come out of recess, and I guess for the first comment is I'd like to take the planning board recommendation and have that marked as Exhibit B. Okay, and then what's the pleasure of the board? I don't know, Joanne, if you had a minute.
I do. Mike, can you just let me share?
Hold on a second. All right, go for it.
You guys can see that, right?
Yep.
Okay. So who wants to read the motion?
What's the pleasure?
I'll read it if you like.
That's Bob Moreau speaking, just in case you're not popping
Yeah.
up on the stenographer's screen.
I make a motion to approve the application on the authority granted to the zoning board of review by Rhode Island General Law 45-24-57 and by the town of Foster zoning ordinance, Article 11, Section 3C. Specifically, the following special use permit is granted. Special use permit for lodging, guest house, or bed and breakfast use. Number 7, residential uses. Section 38-199 of the Foster zoning ordinance. Evidence of the following standards pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 45-24-42 in the town of Foster zoning ordinance, Article 7, Section 2B has been entered into the record of the proceedings. The special use is specifically authorized by this ordinance. The special use meets all of the criteria set forth in the sections of this ordinance authorizing such special use, and the granting of the special use permit will not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the intent or purpose of this ordinance or the comprehensive plan of the town. Optional conditions. Further, it is proposed that the following special conditions based on competent, credible evidence on the record and allowed under Rhode Island General Law 45-24-43 in the Foster zoning ordinance, Article 7, Section 3 will be applied to the decision in order to promote the intent and purposes of the comprehensive community plan of the town in the zoning ordinance. 1, that this special use permit be limited to Dare to Dream Ranch, Randall Bagwell, and that any change in ownership, management of the property, or change in lessee will require a new special use for continued use. 2, that this special use permit shall be limited to veterans in the Dare to Dream Ranch program. 3, that the unit must comply with the requirements for A, potable water as approved by the Department of Public Health, B, sewage disposal as approved by the Department of Environmental Management, C, compliance with all applicable building codes. 4, that the use be limited to 1 unit to be located on the property, and any additional units will require approval of a new special use permit to be occupied by 1 veteran resident at a time. And 5, that the unit be permanently affixed to the ground as required and deemed appropriate by the building official to comply with all applicable ordinances. And that was a mouthful.
I'll second it.
Manny, I've Karen with her hand up. I know there was just a second.
Sorry, yeah, I heard a second. Is there a discussion, or did you say Karen's hand was up?
Yeah, Karen's hand was up.
Karen?
Sorry, so it said secured to the ground. The unit is not going to be secured to the ground. And if it becomes, because of the type of building material, which you are not already stated, you do not want to make the determination of what type of material it's used. It is a container. And if it is a container in which we need to replace, we need to pick it up and remove it. So as far as securing it to the ground, can we leave the securing to the ground and leave it as as the building official deems required for this lodging unit.
Karen, could I answer that question?
Yes.
You could consider hurricane straps because they secure it to the ground. That's an
Okay.
option.
Okay, okay.
And then-
I just didn't want you to tell me I have to cement it to the ground. I'm like, what if you have to pick it up and move it?
Yeah, and I think,
Yeah, just real quick, that's why I kind of like that language open-ended.
Okay,
So it can be as determined by the building
Thank
official,
you.
because the building official might have specific requirements
Okay.
for that.
okay, okay.
I just I don't even want to get involved with discussing how it's going to be affixed to the ground. They may, but
Yes.
Karen, I mean, you have to be prepared that they may say it may require all of that. It's their purview.
I am, I just, if you put it in as the building official requires, compared to the wording that you just said.
I think we've, this is the motion that's in front of us. As a board, is there any discussion?
I do think that language is open-ended enough, and the building official is the one who will be implementing this.
Yeah,
So I
I
don't-
believe the building. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe if you read that second recommendation, it is up to the building official what he sees is necessary. So required. So I don't think that
No, I don't have.
telling you have to put concrete on the
Okay,
building,
so,
put a foundation under it or anything.
okay, thanks, Joe. Any other discussion? If not, Donna, can we have a roll call? I think you're on mute.
Donna's on mute.
Sorry, Joe Carey,
Aye.
James Finnegan,
Aye.
Robert Moreau,
Aye.
Donna Carchia, I, Manny Linhares.
Aye. Okay, the motion made passed unanimously. So congratulations, and we're excited to see and hear about all the great work you're going to do with veterans going forward. For sure, Karen.
Thank you,
Thanks, Karen.
thank you,
Good luck, Karen.
Take care.
thank you.
Okay, so I think we have another agenda item.
Yeah, this was a carryover from the last meeting. There was a discussion on the, you made a motion to add an agenda item at the last meeting for discussion for engaging when to send over for recommendations to the planning board. And so there was discussion about whether or not variances should automatically go over. And that sort of thing. So there was a substantive conversation on that, and then we just needed to put it on for this agenda so that you can make a formal motion on that discussion.
Okay, and I assume we should, do we do the same and ask for public opinion at a point?
No.
Okay, so do I read a little bit, or are we all set with what Michael introduced?
Yeah, it's not a public hearing, so what Mike said is fine. And also for Cindy.
Oh, Cindy, we're all set. Thank you. Yeah.
You don't need to stay anymore. Have a good night.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board? Let's have some discussion on this.
I like the idea of sending it to the planning board, and I think that as we saw tonight, the planning board did come forward with some recommendations that we found useful. And I think it gives us more time, and it gives us more people looking at what might become complicated for one of our hearings.
I know I had suggested at the last meeting that this is just for variances, of course, because special use permits have to go to the planning board. That we allow the chair and the planner to make a decision if they feel that it warrants review by the planning board. And if it does, then, we can just bring it to our board. But if it's something more complicated, but if it's something very simple that the zoning board would just handle it.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have to agree with Donna. I think that the planning board, they've offered some, in this particular case we just went over, some great insights into things that saved us a lot of time. I think that would be a good idea to send them all variances application to the planning board for an advisory opinion.
And again, I think on the vein of both Donna and Bob, I think that the planning board did provide some good information through this. They had a very interesting meeting this past one to handle collecting a lot of this info for us. But I do think, I'm very thankful for what they've provided to us tonight. I think it guided us very well. So I too lean towards giving them a shot at these variances and give us a recommendation. Jim, do you have?
Yeah, so I understand the intent. I'm okay with the intent of doing it. I'm with Joe though that we do it more on a case-by-case basis, that Manny use the chair and Michael take each one on its face and make a recommendation to have it go to the review. That it's just not, what I don't want to do is just automatically state as a policy, everyone has to go to the planning board. I rather go with the intent of the procedure that says they may go to the planning board if the zoning board recommends it. So I'm with Joe that we should just not make it a policy everyone goes, that it's more on a case-by-case basis. And then it's the discretion is with the chair and the planning with Michael.
Well, I'm not opposed to that. I think Michael will know when it comes across his desk how complicated it might be. And then it would be at Michael and Manny's discretion. Let's send this to the planning board and look for some feedback from them.
Yeah, and I like that, because you know why I like that is what we're trying to do is help save time and cost of everybody, including the applicant. And right up front, if we're sitting here saying, no, we're going to kick this back to the planning board, then it took a lot of expense and time, like having the stenographer. So at least having them do a first pass and say, we recommend it go to the planning board, but not having the board look at it each and every time. I think it meets everyone's intent without just carte blanche giving every one of them over, saying they're all going to the planning board. I don't think that's the intent of the ordinance, to have an applicant be forced automatically each and every time to go to the planning board. That's all.
Okay. Is there any further discussion, or is there the pleasure of the board to hear a motion?
Well, so you want me to make a motion?
So I just want to, you might want to poll the board, because if it's going to be kind of a policy that it's between you and Mike, I don't know that the board needs to actually take a vote on that. That's more of your purview as the chair. If you're going to do an automatic, then you might want to take a vote on it. So maybe poll the board to see which it's going to be.
Okay, so is that okay for me to help facilitate, or Donna, actually, can you poll the board of the automatic?
Sure. James,
Nay.
Robert,
Yay.
Joe,
No.
Donna. Yay. Manny.
Yay.
So that is
The ayes have
automatic.
it.
Okay. So then somebody make a motion that all variance applications that the policy of this zoning board will be that all variance applications will be sent to the planning board for an advisory opinion before being placed on your calendar or your agenda for a public hearing. Somebody can just say so moved.
So moved.
Thanks.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Donna?
Can we have discussion on this still?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, Joe?
I just want to bring up a point of why I don't believe this is a good idea. All right, I want to build a shed. I need a 3-foot side yard setback variance because I'm going to be 47 feet from the side yard and it's required 50. We're going to take this to the planning board to say, well, okay, it's only 3 feet. And if, you know, I mean, it's like a small variance like that, you're going to bring every little variance and make people go to another meeting. You know, I could see if it's something like, you know, that's really extreme or complicated, but I mean, I don't understand. And it's not in our ordinance, so I don't know how the board can overrule what the ordinance reads. You know, and it is up to the zoning board to send it for review. So it doesn't mean it's automatic, and I don't know if you can change that without changing the zoning ordinance itself. But I mean, that's up to the solicitor, what she thinks.
I think that as part of the discussion, Joe, the concern is that even something like 3 feet could have a lot of research that goes into what that 3 feet actually means, depending on the type of property, the conditions of what that 3 feet actually impacts. And I think having the planning board review and gather some of that information to provide to us could be very helpful to speed up our time.
Just my opinion.
Understood. Anyone further for discussion? Okay, hearing no further discussion, Donna, can you do a roll call?
Yep. James Finnegan,
Nay.
Robert Moreau,
Aye.
Joe Carey,
No.
Donna Carchia, aye. Manny Linhares,
Aye. Okay, the motion, I believe, passes 3-2.
So that was it. Hey, who seconded the motion to
I did.
approve Snagwood? It was Donna. Okay, thank you. I just need that for my notes.
Okay. Anyone like to make an motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Roll call.
James Finnegan,
Aye.
Robert Moreau,
Aye.
Joe Carey,
Aye.
Donna Carchia, aye. Manny Linhares.
Aye.
Okay, have a good night, everyone.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for your
Good
Have a
night.
good night.
No, I want to.